I think everyone, if they've played one, remembers their first E3 type moment with a Halo game. Maybe it was aboard the Pillar of Autumn, the cramped hallways, and the fight to get off the ship. Or looking at the landscape and seeing a Covenant dropship approach. Maybe it was fighting your way through Cairo Station or giving the Covenant back their bomb, or one of many other such moments throughout the rest of the games. The moment in which you could truly appreciate this sci-fi yet grounded masterpiece, mostly, of a series. There is one other moment though that all Halo fans at some point experienced. No matter what game it was, seeing and driving the Warthog for the first time is something truly different to many other moments in other game series. The sleek metal plating, the bulletproof windshield, the rotary chain gun, the perfect blend of futuristic and modern day combat design. You can see how it's been inspired by all kinds of media. The controls and slide it has from its weight on every surface just give it such a, I don't want to say tactile or realistic feeling, but those are the only words I can find for this. It is probably, in my completely unobjective opinion, one of, if not the, best looks-wise designed vehicles in a video game, ever. Only one small problem. It makes no practical sense in any possible way, and if you showed it to a defense contractor, they would kick you out of the building and send an autonomous attack dog to your house. This is going to be a very sciencey video, so strap in. The Warthog's first appearance, obviously, was the original Halo Combat Evolved in 2001. They were actually originally planned to be basically Humvees, back when Halo was an RTS before Microsoft got it, yes seriously, and share a very similar all-rounder purpose to them, so that's the vehicle I'm going to be comparing them most to. There is also this early concept art for them depicting them to be more like buggies than any sort of truck, but with the way they are and function today, I'm still going to be going with the Humvee. One big note though before everything else, I'm going to be using the chain gun, or formerly light reconnaissance version of the Warthog, just for simplicity and because it seems to be the most common. The official pages for these stats was actually deleted off Halo Waypoint a while ago for some reason, but I'm still going to count them as canon. The length of the Warthog is 6 meters or 20 feet and has a width of 3 meters or 3.2 meters or 2.5 meters or 6 meters. This part of the research was truly painful. According to many different sources, the Warthog has many different widths, but for the sake of I want to make this video work, the best middle ground is 3 meters or 9.8 feet. Doing the same thing with the height, the best option is 3.2 meters or 10 feet. And the weight is a simple 3 metric tons or 6,613 pounds. I'm gonna get to that. Those are some crazy stats if you think about it. First off, comparing it to a Humvee, it's 5 feet longer, 4 feet higher, and almost 3 feet wider. Here is where the problems start. Just looking at the side views, it should be immediately obvious there's a huge lack of armor on the Warthog, especially for the driver. But they're designed for Spartans or heavy armored Marines, someone thinks. I swear at least one of you thought that, and that couldn't even be close to true. Taking account of as many Spartans as I could find, there are only ever around 3,000 Spartans in total, and far less at the same time, as well as the fact that there were many years before Spartans were a part of the military. Meanwhile, there were probably millions, if not billions, seeing as how far humanity spread out, of UNSC personnel. And if you're going to make a light reconnaissance vehicle, you should probably design it for the vast majority of your forces. Also, the majority of Marines are not that well armored, so that point is moot as well. Oh, but what if it was made for fighting rebellious people, not the Covenant? In that case, you need even more armor, as people are notorious for using less laser weapons and more rocket launcher IED style fighting, as well as the fact that this almost 10-foot across monstrosity would not be great for urban combat, and since it also has a huge suspension and wheels, it seems to be more designed for off-road anyway. On that note, the Warthog is absolutely terribly designed in the case of an improvised explosive going off underneath it. Granted, the Humvee is as well, but at least if a small one went off under a Humvee, it wouldn't send the occupants into the stratosphere. That's also true with how much this thing slips, slides, jumps, and crashes. You'd be firing off Marines like rockets. And don't even get me started on this affront to basic engineering and design. Back at the stats now, these seem fine, but there's a problem here. A kitted out Humvee usually weighs around 8,500 pounds, which is about 3.85 tons. So how the hell does a smaller but kitted one weigh quite a bit more? Well, it's time to find out how much the Warthog actually weighs, and that's going to require a lot of math. First off, I got my hands on an official 3D model of the Warthog from Halo CE, don't ask how, and set its dimensions correctly. Now, using some tools, I was able to get the volume of it to come out to 14.65 meters cubed. To get mass from volume, you also need density. Now, finding density for this was not easy, but my best place to start was armor plating. Armor plating is usually made out of steel, but the densities and types of steel can vary a lot, so I went with something pretty much in the middle for steel: iron. taking the density of iron, 7,780 kilograms per meter cubed, multiplied by the volume of our Warthog here, you get 115,353 kilograms, 254,310 pounds, or 115.35 metric tons. I see quite a big difference there, Microsoft. Now, for a frame of reference, that kind of number is similar to the Caterpillar D11T bulldozer, which looks like this compared to people. What makes this even crazier is by using the formula for kinetic energy, 1/2 m times v squared, we can find that going 30 miles per hour, this Warthog would have 10,373,711 joules of energy. Again, that number needs some reference, so let's take an average car. 4,000 pounds is currently around the average, so converting to metric and reversing this math, we get a velocity of 106 meters per second. And back to freedom units, that's almost 240 miles per hour. What does all that mean, you ask? Taking an example car here around that weight, say a Dodge Challenger, going 240 miles per hour would hit you with the same amount of energy as the Warthog doing only 30. And I must note, the Warthog can go much faster than that. In fact, it can go, according to Bungie, 78 miles per hour at its fastest. Some more math, and changing that back into Challenger numbers, we get the equivalent of being hit by a car going 574 miles per hour. Those are plane numbers. That is insane. No wonder elites get sent flying at just a tap. But wait, you say, there would be some gaps in the vehicle for the engine, and not everything would be iron. Yeah, that was just a thought experiment, so let's drop this volume down to 13 meters cubed, use aluminum instead, and redo the math. Now we have a more reasonable 35,100 kilograms, 35.1 metric tons, or 77,382 pounds. No longer insane, but not great for a light reconnaissance vehicle. How is it possible that this vehicle is so heavy though? Even looking back at the Humvee, the stats just don't seem that different other than weight, but I'm pretty sure I know the answer. The inside of a Humvee looks like this, and a Warthog's looks like this. You're inside metal, what did you expect, the back rooms? Seriously, that weight is somewhere in the middle between a light and heavy tank, or about 55 cows. Another part of this whole weight thing is the suspension system, and while there are systems that can do these kinds of numbers, most of them are probably not also off-road military grade, usually being made for things like fire trucks. This basically means that it could work, but that it could also just crumple the second you let it down, especially if you say, drop it from a couple of feet in the air. But are there more problems? Of course. This glass here, at least according to that official 3D model, is 1 millimeter thick or less. That is, of course, minuscule for any sort of glass, and as this is a combat vehicle, glass shattering with a small hit or jump probably isn't the best option. So what is? Well, seeing as they would want to be able to see through it, but still have a good structure, it would probably be the industry standard minimum of 19 millimeters thick. That being said though, there is a reason that most bulletproof or resistant glass does not sit at an angle on vehicles. That reason being the fact that it can cause fisheye distortion, and a distorted field of view is most definitely something you do not want to have when you're driving a 32-ton vehicle at 60 miles an hour over rough terrain with fellow soldiers during a firefight with enemy aliens that feel a religious obligation to blast you to smithereens. The gunner up here is also completely exposed, whereas in most vehicles, at least their legs are covered up and they can still duck in case of concentrated fire. The Warthog gunner though? Cooked. So, as you can see, this marvelous vehicle exposes everyone to being shot, launches occupants if anything mildly jostles the transport which won't stop jostling, with a windshield that would explode in an instant, weighs almost 30 tons more than it really should, crushes its suspension, can't stop sliding, and I haven't even got to the biggest problem. Arguably, this problem has both nothing to do with the Warthog itself and everything. So let me explain as simply as I can. The UNSC troopers are pretty much all terrible at driving. You'd probably expect this because, as I stated, there could possibly be billions of personnel, and that would be about the same as the amount of drivers we have today. How are those people doing? Everything good? Everyone can simply drive calmly and without causing tons of crashes, right? How was your last experience driving on a highway? Now imagine that those same people are driving a vehicle with all of these problems, and that they're being shot at. Do you see the point I'm making yet? They do not have the resources to teach every Marine the ins and outs of driving one of these things, and all the problems they could have. But there's actually a bigger problem even outside of that one that makes the Warthog simply incompetent to use against the Covenant. Plasma. Let's take a look at some Covenant vehicles and weapons to prove my point, and I'll swear I'll go fast, as this video is looking pretty long already. Starting off with a bang, the Wraith. Simply mobile artillery, usually with a smaller plasma turret similar to the one used for stationary defense. Both of this vehicle's weapons would hit the Warthog from above, where notably, there is no armor for anyone in the vehicle. A fantastic choice. The same thing can be said for the Banshee, as since it's an aerial vehicle, both its plasma and fuel rod cannons would most likely be hitting from above. As for vehicles like the Scarab and Seraph, there isn't really anything much you could do against them, but still, armor would be nice. In the weaponry category now, the fuel rod cannon, the handheld one, could most likely put a hole in the Warthog, or just vaporize the gunner. Shade turrets are also raised, as well as the Covenant's knack for using raised platforms in warfare, and also, I don't think I need to continue, you get my point. The Halo Warthog is a terribly engineered, heavy, unarmored, outmatched vehicle against any force, Covenant, or otherwise. Maybe that's why the entire fate of humanity rested on one guy named John. But remember, that's just science and common sense. Well, it's more like a theory, but you know. If you like this video, this left one is similar but more lore based, and the one on the right is a very normal review of a game. But else than that, if you really like this video, it was a lot to research, and if not, I'll send an autonomous attack dog to your house. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.